coming up here at the end of June. Thanks so much for joining me, Mike. I want to take it all the way back. You know, when you first take the job with KTOE, did you ever imagine calling all these games with MSU the way that it's gone down?
No, not really. I mean, you take a job and it's like anything else. You try to, you know, fall into the flow of things. And we had a lot of history made during the time I've been here in terms of regional appearances, ultimately breaking through into the Frozen Four a couple of times and seeing really the evolution of MSU hockey at the D1 level.
And you talk about that evolution, a pretty special seat for you to see just the different eras of Maverick hockey. So to where it is now, just how much has Maverick hockey been elevated?
Well, you know, we've had 3 coaches since I've been here, with Luke Strand now being here 1 season. Troy Jutting's first year as head coach was the first year I was here. And of course, one of the things you inherit in the old WCHA is a wicked schedule. I mean, MSU had pretty good players. There'd be times they'd finish about 500 in the league. That's pretty good. Most leagues, that might be sitting at number 1. And you were looking at schools then that were ranked in the top 10, top 5 for a lot of them. And it was like a playoff game every weekend. And then slowly but surely the Mavericks evolved. But Coach Mike Hastings came and took it another step. And he built his team from guys coming up from the USHL, guys that were basically captains on championship teams. So they banded together here, and we've had quite a ride over the last 12 years here.
What are some of your favorite moments in some of those bigger games that you really recall vividly?
Well, when I first got here, obviously the Gophers were the main rival. And I think Minnesota kind of looked at Minnesota State as a little brother. They didn't want to get beat by the little brother. The first year I was here, there were 2 overtime ties that were at Mariucci, and then they played to overtime in the playoffs in overtime, and the Gophers won that. And I think later on, a couple of years later, you had the Gophers here for a playoff run, best of 3, 2 overtimes. Mavericks win the Friday game, overtime loss to the Gophers Saturday night, and a double overtime loss to the Gophers on Sunday. That was one of the wildest series I've ever seen. And then over the years, we've made those breakthroughs, winning conference championships with Mike Hastings, going to the regionals, finally breaking that glass ceiling down, and then ultimately getting into the Frozen Four. And unfortunately, their last trip there, less than 15 minutes away from being the national champs, and just kind of slipped away against a very good Denver franchise.
And of course, in those Frozen Fours, you mentioned Minnesota. Mavericks take it to the Gophers in 2 straight years there in the NCAA tournament to knock them out of the playoffs. So when you look at your tenure, what is the one thing that you're really going to remember the most about this gig?
It might be that trip to Boston for the last Frozen Four. Most of the time I rode with the team to the rink to start the game. But we had buses going left and right during that trip. But the guys wanted me to be on the bus for that trip to the rink. We got there and got off the bus. There were hundreds of people standing outside around the stairwell. And I was the last guy to get off the bus. And they're yelling at the guys, yelling at coaches. I'm running up the step. People are pounding me on the back. Let's go, Sully. I mean, it was wild. I'll never forget that as long as I live. That was wild, crazy night.
Such a great experience. We will be back with plenty more coming up after the break. Stay with us.